fires up, and we are rolling. Welcome to the PARAcast. I'm your host, Tomas the Boss Fernandez, or just Tom Nelson. I guess there's no intros tonight. This is going to be, I guess, a mostly serious one.
I was
Join.
looking for an intro.
Well, I don't know how to
Fine.
handle myself in this. So, anyways,
Better man than I am.
joining me, of course, is Robert. Robert's on there. You go to YouTube, you can see everyone's faces. And Area 3 Director Scott Arnburg.
Yes.
So just the history of this. I mean, we were talking about trying to get a response from the board. I was about to fall asleep last night when I saw that Scott had left a message on YouTube on the comments that he would like to talk about the current situation to the best of his ability. Just to preface on this episode, I have questions. I will ask the question. Scott is under no obligation to answer any of these questions, especially questions that he is not able to, by the bylaws, answer. And so, the first thing is, you listen to most of the episode or some of the episode or whatever. First things first. What did we get wrong?
Oh, I don't know that you got anything wrong. You only have part of the story. And I listened to the entire podcast. In fairness, it was the first one I've listened of yours. I intend to go back and listen to some of the other one. I'm in kind of a unique position as a new board member. I'm a very type A personality. I work with a team of 3 people that support me and do everything I ask fairly quickly. And so when I come into a situation where I ask for stuff and it doesn't come out a lot, I've gotten some pushback and been instructed to a certain extent to stay in my own lane a little bit with the board. So, when I saw that you had said, hey, the board is ignoring you, I didn't like that. I don't like that message. I went through yesterday, and every email that was sent to me directly, I replied to that addressed the Mel situation. And with my intentions, one of those emails was leaked to Ben Stoger, I think ended up posting it. My only comment there is I wish he hadn't had my personal cell phone number on that went public and viral.
Lovely.
So, but on the flip side, it's hard to accuse me of leaking when my personal cell phone that I carry with me every day got posted publicly by however many followers Ben has.
Right.
So, I don't feel comfortable answering emails that go to the entire board because I have made a lot of waves. And right now I'm a little concerned because the way the bylaws are written, a RO complaint can be devastating as a board member.
Yeah.
So with our
let me ask. I mean, so was it foolish to send an email to board@uspsa.org then?
No, I think you should, absolutely. So let me give you a little bit of my background. So I've been in the sport 17 years. I've had my ARM Rangemaster ticket since 2012, I think, something like that, 12 or 13. I've run the Iowa sectional for the last 6-7 years running. I've been involved with Area 3. This year, I'm the Rangemaster for the Great Plains sectional, the Cornhusker, the Iowa sectional, and I'm match director for Area 3. I'm classified in every division except for limited optics. I shoot primarily carry optics now. I grew up, so to speak, in production, but I got tired of USPSA hard mode. So now I shoot carry optics.
You're hurting Tommy in the field.
Well, we just got tired of playing Monopoly by ourselves. That's what happened. Everyone else left, and they were like, well, it's 2022. I guess we should probably, guess it's time to leave.
Well, that's my contention with production is that there's nothing that needs to be changed. It's hard mode. It's you're making the stages harder by planning reloads and shooting minor and trying to go fast with iron sights.
Yeah. It is very much the thinking man's game.
Yeah. It is not the division that the average person. So, a little more background. I run with a little bit of help. I don't do this by myself. Don't want to sell short. My stats guy Andrew Smithson. Shout out to him. He makes my life way easier. And the other critical volunteers. But we run a weekly 4 to 5 stage USPSA match that has between 35 and 50 shooters. Wow. I hit the range at 3 p.m. and we build the stages, shoot the stages, and tear them all down by 7:30.
Wow.
And typically, we will shoot, as described by other competitors that travel around. We shoot sectional level stages every week. The stage I built last week, you had distances from 7 to 35 yards. You had a swinger at 18 yards with 2 targets and a no shoot in between, and that's not uncommon.
Wow.
So you're used to having an effective group of people around you to sit there
Correct.
and put up a match at 3:30 p.m. and have it done by 7:30.
Yep.
So
and we are number 3 in Area 3 for mission count every year. So there's you can list all the total mission count by club, and we'll be number 3.
Jeez Louise, that's impressive. The fact that you're putting on, 4 of these things a month that's no small feat. And the burnout for stuff like that is real.
I've been doing it for a decade, probably longer. I've got 3 or 4 other sub match directors. So at our home club, I oversee pretty much all the non-shotgun stuff. So we have multi-gun, we have NRL 22, IDPA, Steel Challenge, and USPSA. USPSA probably dwarfs everything else. That's where a lot of our interest is. And we've got a great setup. In fact, I just kind of led the board of my home club through the thought that the city's starting to build around us, and we need to start looking ahead 5 to 10 years and starting to purchase land. When I joined the club, we had 180 members. We were $250,000 in debt. Fast forward to today, we have 850 members. We have net assets of about $1.5 million.
Wow.
Nice.
Have you ever thought about taking all this information that you've developed as a match director and putting it down into a format that other match directors could learn from? This is my personal personal thing. It's something I believe in.
Yes, I should do that. I don't like to write. I'm great at emails. I'm great at short communication. Anything beyond that, it's been a goal of mine to write an article for the sectional matches and all that, and I've just never got it done. It's not my forte. How I try to act as a resource is, I give out my personal cell phone. I match director for the Great Plains sectional today. We had an hour-long call, bounced a bunch of ideas off. He's not new to the game. This is his 3rd year running it, but it's always nice to have, that extra opinion or that extra insight from running and working nationals and multiple area matches, and then running a sectional for year after year after year. And then the advantage of our club with being fairly affluent. I just ordered, what did I order? 5,000 IPSC targets and 3,000 USPSA targets. And then what I do, or what our club has decided to do, is we offer them at cost to the clubs in the section. And the reason it's a benefit is I'm getting 6,000 targets delivered for $400.
That's not bad.
Yep.
That's not bad.
Because we have a forklift on site, we have a concrete floored building to store it in. I think our cost is 65 cents a target.
Jeez.
With shooters connections, what, a little over $1 plus shipping?
Yeah, everything's gone up generally, so that's still an amazing deal. Yeah, this is one of the things I've been begging for a long time is a resource from, and I know this is kind of off topic, but I've wanted to see USPSA create some kind of whether it's a part of their webpage or something, a place where match directors, section coordinators, people could go to share their best tips and tricks, so that when a new match director comes on board, they're not starting from ground zero. They just have something there. Go here, ask your questions. And I'm just not a computer guy. I'm not technical, so it's hard.
Well, I mean, I think that really ties into what is USPSA National's product, right? What is their product? What do they sell, right? They don't sell the match experience. That's the club level. They sell the rule set. To a certain extent, they sell the scores, and then they sell the knowledge base.
Right.
You know, the magazine is there. I guess I look at myself as an example. I used to get a bunch of magazines, Guns and Ammo, Shooting Times, all kinds of stuff. I get none of that anymore. I just don't read them.
I don't either. The times have moved on.
Yeah.
I still look at the cover of Blue Press, but some months just aren't as impressive anymore.
Yeah. So I think USPSA, and this is Scott speaking,
Sure.
And yes, Scott, Area 3 Director, but Scott speaking, we need to get back to the roots and realize what our product is and focus on it. And our product is the scores, the rule set, and
the classification system.
The classification system is there also. That kind of has limited appeal. So if I look at my club, right, we have about 85% penetration in USPSA membership, which I think is pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because I've turned my competitors into advocates and talked about the classification system and while it's important, but you're never going to get anybody. If we look at our last match, I just uploaded scores for it, paid the $120 activity fee. I think we had 5 competitors that weren't members.
Wow. I think we lost Scott.
Scott, you still there, bud?
Well, that's just awkward.
Let's see.
I don't know what happened there. My Skype crashed.
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, you can still hear me?
Yeah.
Oh,
we can still hear you. Just don't stop your audio recorder.
Okay, I didn't.
Okay.
So where I was going with this is there's 5 people, and I know those 5 people, and I've talked to them. They're never going to join. They don't care about being classified. They're never going to shoot a level 2. There is nothing in USPSA membership for them.
Sure.
And I think you're always going to have a portion of your competitors that are always going to be that way. They're just out there to shoot, whether it's training, right, or they just for the social aspect of it.
Well, I think that's kind of like the different levels of USPSA members. Like Roberts is, a section coordinator and an RO, and I'm just a member. I like shooting my match a month. I like seeing my friends. I like trying to improve my classification score, and I might shoot my 1 or 2 majors a year.
Okay.
And then there's the more politically involved in the USPSA and the people who are on PSI every day and leaving comments, and the people who are on Ben Stager leaving comments, and the people who are sitting there doing Go Fast Don't Suck and Ben Barry's short course and all those kinds of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so
the Howler monkeys, right? Isn't that what we've? Yeah, that's what I've been dubbed.
Right. Well, it is. I mean, everybody looks at USPSA and they all have their place inside of it. And the nice thing about USPSA is that at the level, at the local level, USPSA has something for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where I've maintained my loyalty is on the local level. Like I just today took the test and I renewed my CRO certification. And after all this stuff that's been going on, I sat on it and I'm like, do I really want to do this anymore? But then I'm like, no, your duty's to the local clubs because that's where everything lies.
And I would ask you to have faith. There are a lot of good people on the board that we're doing our best. But if the organization has to have income to survive.
Right.
And if we go through a boycott, we can't Bud Light ourselves, right?
That's a good point. It's a fair point.
And it's, I've been on the board 58 days. It's going to take some time.
No, I respect that, and I really do, and it's hard because
It is.
you've gone through all these situations in
Yep.
so many years, and there's a lot of trust that feels like it's been lost.
Absolutely.
Well,
And
the other part of
that's
it,
hard.
the other part of it is that there's many people who do not know what members of the board are on the side of kind of cleaning things up and making things more transparent and moving them in a proper direction. And we do not know what members of the board are, especially with the current situation with Eamon Lin, are okay with it.
That's why I'm here today.
Okay. So questions. So I have some questions. You are under no obligation to answer them, and
Yep.
they're hard questions.
Fire away.
Okay, why is Troy, who is at the center of this kind of controversy, the one who's personally answering the questions? Why is he responding to the emails that are directed to the board?
I have not seen any conversation amongst board members to designate Troy to do that. I think an email came that was directed to him. He answered and then just started copying and pasting. In retrospect, maybe I should have taken a more active role in that. But to the best of my knowledge, he's not been directed to do that. And I do want to speak to this whole process. The board has been well informed on the RO discipline process. And to the best of my knowledge, I think it's been followed exactly to the letter. I don't think there has been any deviation. I don't feel that there has been anything that is outside of the stated policy. Now, the stated policy was put into place, I don't know, a while ago. Troy's form response, I think, covers when that was put into place. That was before me.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen anything personally to indicate that Yi Min was given any different treatment than anyone else.
As far as the process of having his certification revoked.
As far as the RO discipline process, I believe, to the best of my knowledge, it's been followed to the letter.
Next question: did the board vote on Yeeman's removal from president after his certification was revoked?
That was covered in an executive session, and while we're talking about the Yeeman subject, number one, I think it's pretty common knowledge that there's an appeal in process, and I owe it to both Yeeman and the board not to unduly influence that process. I'm happy to talk about other stuff that's been public, but I respect Yeeman, and everything involving that process was done in executive session.
Okay.
Specifically speaking, 10.2 of the bylaws say that board members can't speak about personnel, employment, any of that. And if they do, then they're in violation. Then they potentially are in violation of 10.2, which is of cause for concern if that happens. And so, I'm just giving you the background on this.
Yep.
Yeah, an area director should not be speaking out of turn, no matter who they are. Right. They shouldn't be doing it.
And I'm probably skirting it just a little bit in saying that to the best of my knowledge, things have been followed exactly to the letter of the law. But I think that's an important message.
That's fair.
I think that's an important message to say that the RO discipline process is very well documented. Is it perfect? I don't know. What is perfect, right? But I'm not aware of anything that has been done outside of the rules.
Okay. And just so everyone's aware, listen, everyone knows me. I don't want to be the guy asking these questions, but I feel it.
Yeah, I'm generally considered to be the guy on the show that's the jerk.
I feel like I will ask the hard questions even though I don't want to ask the hard questions on behalf of the membership.
You don't have to apologize.
Well,
fire away.
All right.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So in the RO investigation process, when you have so typically how that works, according to what was put out on the NROI website. You'll have an investigation committee, and that committee is going to comprise of 3 RMIs. I don't know if they're RMIs or just RMs particularly, but 3 range masters. The range masters would then go and look at all the facts. I mean, just like an arbitration, pull all the evidence, get the witness statements, and then from there they would then render an opinion. If it's an arbitration, that opinion then is so it is written, so shall it be. In the case of an investigation committee, and I'm getting my words a little bit messed up, but I think you'll understand. There is the investigation committee can recommend a procedure or a punishment or whatever, but the DNROI then can say, well, no, I either accept this or I reject it, and based on my opinion, I can render a different verdict. And the question that I have is, why do you think that DNROI's opinion is more valid than 3 RMIs or range master in the investigation committee? Why or why not? That's kind of my question.
Well, I think, and so this is not speaking. This is speaking about the process,
just generally.
Just generally about the process. I think they're much like a match. You have to have a chain of command, and so I think this is structured very similar to the match process. You have the stage staff, you have the CRO, you have the range master, and then you have the match director. So the stage staff makes the call, and so the range master instructor committee made the call. It was appealed up to the range master. The range master made another call, and now the final appeal process in a match is the match director. Well, in this case, it's the board.
The board of directors.
And so it came from the stage staff. If you've ever been a match director or a range master, occasionally your stage staff, they make the best call they can with the information they have presented. And occasionally as a range master, and I'm going to assume as Troy, as director of the Range Officer Institute, he may have more knowledge than the rest, and he has to make the best call that he can. And then the process now we're following through is there's an appeal process.
Are you privy to all the information when a CRO or RO gets their certification revoked, as far as witness statements and what DNROI?
This is the first time I've been involved one. I can tell you that the board as a whole was forwarded a lot of information. It is not simply word of mouth.
Okay. Next question. Let's see. In communications with NROI and the board of directors, have you heard or read any derogatory comments towards G. Minlin? If you can't answer, you can't answer.
I still think that we need to do another one of these once this is all done.
Okay.
Fair enough.
And one because here it is. I think this process is too important for the integrity of the organization. I don't want to jeopardize it.
Correct. Okay. Fair enough.
I appreciate you saying that, though. I mean, I really do. I think Tommy and I are in the same boat. That, like, we really don't want to put you in a position that is going to unduly influence how you can react or vote in this situation. Well, I appreciate you coming on, at least being willing to talk, because that's not what we're getting in a lot of these situations. And I know some of these questions, they're hard questions, but it does actually mean something that somebody would at least come and say hello.
Come on, and at least sit there and look at the camera while it's being asked.
One of my goals when I took office was to do a podcast a month. I've done with the Casual Shooter with Dave Riddle. I've done several with Joel Park, and I are good friends.
Those are really good shows.
Yeah. I did one with Hit Factor guys. And I think that's it. This will be the 4th different one. So my intention. So we kind of had this conversation I did with a couple of the other board members about, hey, USPSA has a podcast. Why don't we use that? And I said, well, you're right. USPSA has a podcast, but why not leverage the reach of all these other established podcasts? They've already done the work. Don't try to reinvent the wheel.
Sure.
There's plenty of them to be communicated with. Has there been any talk to hold a special session for the appeal?
Yes, especially a session has been scheduled. I'm not at liberty to release a date. I don't see that it's been made public information yet.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
Can it right now we have an upcoming presidential election and there's a deadline which is 1 May to run. If
I have a fancy way of saying that, Robert.
Go ahead and ask it then.
Do you believe you will have the opportunity to vote for Yi-Min Lin in the next election?
Yi-Min and I talk. I believe that he has submitted a petition or is planning on submitting a petition just in case.
That's my question.
Okay.
I was curious if he would. So he at least can submit a petition now, and then he could then submit his petition, and then actually run again. Is there anything that would Go ahead.
I can't find anything in the bylaws that says he can't. I mean, it's pretty clear that someone can run in an election and win without having their RO card.
But if a person has their RO card removed from them, is there a time limit? Is there a time limit from which they could then reapply to actually take the RO class?
Well, I would imagine if they.
I would have to check if we're talking specifically about the RO discipline process. I believe, and keep in mind this is from my memory, I believe that there can be a waiting period that is put in place before you can take the RO class, but I'm not 100% certain. I know from a bylaws perspective that there is nothing that prevents someone from running for a board or president position when they do not have an RO card, but they must have one the day they take office.
Do you believe that the bylaws need to be changed to prevent personal issues or abuse from the NROI against elected officials?
I think that the RO requirement and the statement in the bylaws that basically says that once you don't meet the requirement that you are deemed to have resigned, the interaction of those two was an unforeseen consequence. I know as me, Scott Arnburg, the range master, it's given me a moment of pause when it comes to volunteering and working at matches. The range master role can definitely put you at odds with some competitors, and emotions can get strong. And I feel, me personally, again, I feel that I have way more to give as a board member than I have to give as just a range master at a single match.
Okay.
Do you see that as a dampening effect on people potentially either running for an elected position or even volunteering to work a major match?
If that rule does not change, then it will drastically affect how many matches I volunteer to range master in 2024. I will not leave any of my match directors high and dry in 2023. I just don't have that in me.
Yeah. Right. I mean, one of the big concerns for a lot of people was that Yi-Min is, I mean, I looked it up, and he has worked 47 major matches in his career in USPSA, which arguably is he's worked more major matches than most people have or will ever shoot.
Yeah.
And he is widely known around the country as the kind of RO that goes and he works major matches. And
Yep.
I'm really concerned that whatever the outcome of this election, it's going to have a dampening effect on people's willingness to want to go and volunteer and work for a major match. And
I agree.
I
agree.
I find it as a sanctioned, legally sanctioned hit against political opponents if they somehow cross NROI, and different personnel in NROI. Like that is, there is no check against that. I mean, you could possibly have an appeal process, but once you basically resign, once the certification is revoked, that leaves a gaping hole for a lot of shenanigans. And
well,
let me turn this around on you guys just a little bit. The president has the unilateral power to suspend somebody. How is that any different?
That's a good question.
Yep.
That's a good question.
That my contention over the past little while is that there seems to be in removing political dissidents. I would say it that way, that there seems to be an ease of which that it can be done.
Yeah.
So, do you want to bring up anything as we're covering the Yeeman Lin subject?
No, I think we've covered it pretty well. The process is being worked out. The RO discipline process is being followed to the letter, to the best of my knowledge. I think we as an organization need to give it a little patience to get through here and understand that timing's unfortunate. The World Speed Shoot is going on right now, and some of the people involved are volunteering very heavily there, so it makes it hard to pull them away from that and potentially impact hundreds of competitors from all over the nation.
Do you believe that there's support to changing the bylaws on the board?
I think every board member should be concerned about the ability to lose their seat due to an RO action.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, we've all been at matches and seen things get heated, right?
You don't even have to go to a match. You just go to a comment section, and you can see how heated things are. This is the one thing that I like. This weapon. If you can file a complaint against anybody, the only protection that you have is whether or not anybody could file it as something on somebody else.
Well, I don't think you have to remember that there is a group of RMIs that are going to investigate this. Yes. And maybe my opinion's jaded because I do hold my range master ticket, but those are all good people that have the sport at the forefront in their minds. Yeah. And I think they are objective. Is it a concern for me? Sure. Have I had interactions in all the sectionals I've run? I think I've run, I don't know, 25 or 30 sectionals and probably 400 club matches, I would guess at least. And have I had some interactions where people have left angry? Absolutely. If you go to my home club and you look at the Google reviews, there's people there that won't come back until I leave. But I tell you what, when you point a gun at me, you're going to get the rough side of my voice really quickly.
Oh, I just go, oh shucks, please don't do that. No more.
We've already established that I scream like a baby. Let me ask you a question. As a range master, if you're working a match, and you have ROs, CROs, and they're not doing their job, what is your first course of action? What should be your first course of action?
I have a little different philosophy than what I have observed in other matches. I am much more hands-on. So an example, at our club matches, we had an RO class here not long ago, and for several months after that, all the people that passed were put on my squad. And then I handed them timers and I handed them devices and I coached them where to stand, what to watch for, what calls to watch, how to be a good RO, and kind of thrust them into that role. When I'm running a sectional, I will go around and I will time stages. I run a stopwatch to see how long does it take them to turn a squad over. I look for ways to improve that. Continually coach the ROs. Hey, watch your steel. Don't be afraid in between squads to adjust it, and let's have it fixed before we have a calibration. I tend to be much more proactive. I am not typically the range master that drives around in the golf cart waiting to be called. I think if this is, and again, back to my opinion, I think you lose an opportunity to mentor and grow your staff. And I think the Iowa sectional would be my test case. That's my home club. That's the one I run for a long, long time. It gets some good reviews.
Right.
And keep in mind, we run an 11 stage match on a range that only has 5 shooting bays.
So I gotta ask, why are you still using a stopwatch? You have practice score. Are you guys not doing paperless scoring?
No, the stopwatch is for me to time from make ready to make ready, to see how long it takes the staff to turn a shooter.
I got you.
And that all comes back to timing, the number of shooters on a squad, how much time I allow for a squad to finish a bay. My goal is we start shooting by 8 o'clock, and I would like to have people on the road by 2:30 or 3, having fired 11 stages plus chrono.
That's a good goal.
That do the commander timers with practice score now? Do they tell you like the turnover of an entire squad, but do not tell you the turnover of an individual shooter?
I don't know yet.
Yes.
See, so our club, we own 14 or 15 iPad minis, and the iOS interface does not talk to the Bluetooth timers very well. And
what are you using?
we have Pocket Pro 2s that we can't get.
I've heard they're trouble.
Yep. And so we are looking at Andrew, I think, picked up a couple of ruggedized phones to try. So we're looking at making the switch back to Android. Back to philosophy on club management. I run the club like a business. We have a $10,000 annual budget for props and reinvestment into the club, with the expectation that we have to be profitable. And so it's, we're able to have new nice stuff. We have, I don't know, 200 meg Wi-Fi on the bays. So we run score logging for club matches. So you get your email as soon as the score is entered.
Right. Yep. That's what we do, and that's
what
we do. We set that up last year.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Okay.
Excuse me.
Talking about certifications, the situation with the Area 4 director. Mm-hmm. So the question is, when was the board made aware of Mel's certification situation?
The first time I was aware of it was the day before the last board meeting. So what's the 17th?
Okay.
Yeah.
So 17th of this month. That's
when I was aware of it, yes.
Do you know if the board was aware of it before then?
Wasn't there didn't Ted put a post up that they were aware of it in January? And gave like a grace period or something like that?
That was my understanding of it.
Yeah, so my next question was...
I thought I saw that in the Area 8 Facebook group, yeah.
Are you aware of a plan that was put in place by the board of directors to rectify the situation?
I am not. My interpretation of the bylaws is there is no provision for a grace period or anything like that. And that I've had a lot of questions, and I have requested a special meeting to address this situation.
I have a question. There's a term that the Constitution is not a suicide pact.
Correct.
Meaning that there are things that sometimes come up that we never anticipated, never thought could happen, but here they are. We're now dealing with them.
Right.
In situations like this, we never thought about it, didn't imagine it coming, or else, we didn't hear objections at the time. And yet here we are now in a situation of we have an area director, Mel, who I like. I really do. I really like him. Very good guy. And unfortunately was caught up in this whole situation. And yet here we are. And so when you're dealing with a situation that the bylaws don't have any support for, there's no structure inside the bylaws on how to deal with it, what as a board do you guys do?
Well, as board members, we have a fiduciary obligation to the organization. And in my mind, that doesn't give us the leeway to pick and choose which bylaws we want to enforce. The bylaws are very specific. We just have to follow them. Mel's a great guy. All my interactions with him have been positive. It is what it is. It's nothing personal.
Right.
He can, we need to follow the bylaws. We need to have a special election. Who knows? Maybe he'll get elected again. But at the end of the day, we have to do what's right. We have to do what the bylaws say. We don't get to pick and choose which ones we want to follow. That's not how this works.
Well, if that was the case, then why did the board, in the board meeting minutes, it said that the board voted, not unanimously, but the board voted to extend a special timing. And I understand from what Ted has said the reasons why, but even though the bylaws didn't support it, why did the board of directors decide to ignore the bylaws in this case when that is and what should be their guiding fundamental core principles?
I can't speak to that. That was done in the January in-person meeting before I was on the board. I was in the February board meeting. I was actually acting in my role just long enough to make a motion to adjourn. And then the March would have been my first full board meeting. And there was a lot in that meeting. I mean, if you look at the timeline out of the minutes, it was a 5-hour meeting and 3+ of it was in executive session. It was a long night.
Sure. But even this most recent board meeting, the one that was last Thursday, I think it was, or something like that.
Last Tuesday, yep.
Last Tuesday, excuse me. That he was allowed to go get his cert.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have an excuse for that.
Fair enough.
I know. Again, my email that I replied to some members that reached out to me directly has been leaked. It's I've requested and received support to have a special board meeting to address this situation. And my view is that we don't get to pick and choose. Did I fail by not bringing that up in that last meeting? Yeah, I could definitely see how that could be said. There's a lot going on, and it took a lot to digest and a lot for me to understand. And I'll be honest, I've read the bylaws multiple times. There's a lot there, and I had to go kind of back through it and make sure I understood all the. I went back through it looking for a way to do what was done, and I was not able to find it.
That's fair.
And at that point, then I knew what I had to, at least what I owed it. I felt that I owed it to the membership. And I think I have a little different view than maybe some of the board members. I was elected by the Area 3 people, but I served the entire membership.
Right.
So I owe it to the membership as a whole to do what I think is best.
So I agree with you. I agree with you. If you if you call for another board meeting, when a board member calls for a meeting, does that mean that the meeting actually happens, or does it mean that it goes to a vote and say, well, we decided we don't really want to have a meeting?
I believe it takes 3. And there was sufficient support that I believe a meeting will be scheduled soon.
Fair enough. And we'll see whether if it comes out in the agenda, then we'll see if that happens.
Yes, I looked before we started this call and I did not see an agenda on the website, so
that's fine. And obviously the two situations, the Mill situation and the Neiman situation, they are kind of the same rule set, just applied very differently.
I think we got to the same end. We just got there two different paths.
Correct.
One path is Yeeman potentially having his RO certification removed, and Mel's path is he just never had it.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the bylaws are very clear. You don't have to have an RO cert to run or be elected, but you have to have one the day you take office or you're deemed to have resigned.
Yep. So let me ask you then, I mean, if there's enough support, what is the process to change the bylaws? Because I remember this happened, but I just don't remember offhand.
As I remember, again, this is off of my memory.
Sure.
They have to be published in the minutes of one board meeting, and then they can be voted in the next one with a 3/4 majority. I think.
You think
it's covered in the bylaws?
Right. Tommy.
Hard question.
Okay.
Do you believe USPSA headquarters, board of directors, and ROI handle personnel issues in an ethical and unbiased manner?
I think everyone does the best they can. I think the staff. I mean, think about what the staff has gone through in HQ, right?
Yep.
In the last couple of years, we had basically a hostile removal of a president that had a lot of power. We had a big restructuring of how the bylaws in the org works. We brought in a new managing director. So I come from a small company, right? Legacy Financial Group is 16 people, about the same size as USPSA. You have some really close relationships, and to see so much turnover and so much turmoil, think how those people got to be worried about their jobs and their livelihoods. And so I think they're doing the best they can, and we need to be patient and realize that it's tough to be them. And on top of that, like the managing director has 9 bosses, and one changes every year, right? By the time you get all the area elections, my first career, I worked in medicine, and I had like 8 bosses, and it was absolutely terrible. I feel bad for Donna having to get pulled a bunch of different directions. This sport is filled with type A people, and that carries right up to the board. I know personally, I came on excited and raring to go, and I've had to tone myself back just a little bit. In my role at the company, I'm part owner now. I've been doing this 13 years in the same company, 20 years in financial services. I know where I can get about any answer I want about any time, and I have to realize that this is not the same.
Does that speak to that there are problems with the way that the organization's run then, in terms of the management? Because I can tell you from my personal life, I've been in situations where I've had multiple bosses, and it is basically drag me out back and shoot me in the head.
Yeah.
And eventually, we actually had a conversation of where I actually got 2 of them together, and I'm like, look, I'm happy to do the work. I'll do what you need, but I only want to hear from one of you. The rest of you guys go figure it out, and then have one person talk to me.
Yeah.
And if USPSA right now as an organization is having 9 bosses talking to Donna, would that not kind of like present the idea that maybe the only person that should be directing her at all would be one person, say the president of USPSA?
I think there's there's definitely some refinement that could happen there, mostly from the standpoint of protecting our employees, and having them have a positive work environment.
Right. I know in my interactions with the board, with the employees, just through being a section coordinator and various things like that, I've had a lot of really good interactions, and so I
Yeah.
appreciate all the work they do.
Yep.
They do a
Yeah.
very fine job.
Same here. I
And
was a section coordinator for a decade.
yeah, and it feels to me, without knowing, and so I'm speaking ignorantly, I'm sure, that you have a lot of the people at HQ that is wearing multiple hats.
Yeah.
And
Well, again, think back. Gary Nash left. Foley was removed. You
right.
had that big power vacuum. Jake stepped in and kind of had to run nationals, and I think he did a great job. To a certain extent, it was everyone was the kid at the kid at the dike sticking his finger in the holes.
Fair.
And so change will happen. Change happens in, I think USPSA is kind of on the cusp of what all board-driven organizations come to every decade or so, when the older guard, you're seeing it somewhat in the RO Corps too. The old steadies are, fading away. I mean, Bob Clift, what a great guy.
Jeez.
One of my first mentors at nationals. I worked a stage with Bob.
Me too.
I can't say enough good things about him and Marcia, and to have, we lost him, and but that you see that going across the sport, and that carries on to the board. We're seeing some long-term members take a step back, and whether their interests have changed or just their tolerance for, as a board member, you're basically a piñata, right? You're up there, you stand up there, and the membership takes a whack at you when they think you do something wrong, and your other board members take a whack at you when they think you do something wrong, and eventually you get tired of it and you move on and do something else.
Scott volunteers to be pinata tonight. And good on you for doing it. Let's see. Oh gosh. Let's see. What was my next question? What was the last question we just talked about? Unbiased, in an unbiased manner.
Unbiased staff.
Okay, so do you believe that the bylaws that were changed to reduce the power of the president when Foley left, do you think those were legitimate or good decisions? Or are they hurting us now?
I think the board at the time did what they thought was best. I think maybe there is some room for refinement. I have some opinions on what I think the president's role should be. An example of that is I don't, coming from someone that has run a level 2 and helped run multiple level 3s, I don't think it's fair to thrust the president, someone who's going to be reelected every 4 years, into the role as match director of nationals, for the nuts and bolts. Who's working what, how do we get stages set up, all that other stuff.
Who would do it then?
I think HQ should do it.
Does that not create the problem that essentially, because if the president runs nationals and they do a poor job, we have somebody that we can functionally we can hold accountable to some extent. If HQ does it, then these are all paid employees who we have no power to even talk to or vote against. So in some ways,
even in
it becomes akin to like the DMV.
I mean, to get a majority on the board, you're waiting years to even do that.
Well, let me turn that around.
Fair
So
enough.
if you go to a level 2 and it sucked, do you run up to the match director and yell at him?
I don't as a habit yell at people unless
but
I'm
you
on
are-
the show. But I
you-
understand.
you-
I understand your point. I do go talk to them.
Yeah.
100%. I will,
Right.
and I
And
tell.
and so you could still do that, but the venue would be through your area director.
But that's the concern, is that if, and forgive me, but um, right now the area directors have a perception of being tone deaf to the organization, whether that's warranted or not.
Sure,
There's a perception of that.
that's fair. That's why I'm here tonight.
Thank you, and I don't mean to like cast aspersions. It's just it's a perception that's seen by a lot of people, and it's
Absolutely.
and I'd love to see that. And to be fair on the other side of it, I kind of understand why they wouldn't want to, because it does come back to the idea that you're essentially a piñata. No matter what you do,
Yeah.
somebody's going to be
Well,
angry no matter what.
back earlier in the conversation, we talked about what are USPSA's product, and one of the things we left off is nationals.
Right.
And the best way I know for a match to be run and be consistent is to have people that have the opportunity to do it over and over and over and learn from their mistakes. And I think we've seen that. Nationals, are they perfect? No, nothing's ever perfect, right?
Right.
But they're getting better.
Yeah.
Right. And there's challenges. Now there's a lot of moving pieces. Nationals, one of the biggest expense is, or one of the hardest things to do is staff, because there are very few clubs that have enough staff to run nationals.
Especially year in and year out.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is, I think every club that has tried to run nationals on a consistent basis has found that to be a true statement, which is why you tend to see nationals bounce around a little bit, because it moves to somewhere else that needs that has the facilities, has the staff, and the staffing is the most important issue.
Right. Well, and they leave it. I think, and this is my speculation, I think they leave it a couple years in the same place because I think people feel that these matches generate a ton of revenue. And if you start looking at the outlays, they really don't.
No, they don't. Year one, you're lucky to break even. Year two, you'll make a little bit of money. That's generally how most of these level twos and matches. Yep. And so it's nice to move a sectional to a new club for a couple of years, because the first year they're going to put all into infrastructure and build it up.
Yep. Yep.
And then the second year they can put a little bit of money in the kitty so that they can buy some better stuff, props and things like that.
I almost feel like if the president ran it and actually had those numbers and put out there to the membership of what the plan is for nationals over the course of 3 years, and what the expenditure and what the revenue brought in over this course of 3 years would be an actually pretty fair metric to judge him by.
Guys, it's out there.
Yeah,
it's in the financials. You can look at the financials that are posted and see that nationals loses 6 figures on average every year.
If you were to guess, I mean, you're a financial guy, and so
yeah.
How do we stop the bleeding? I don't expect nationals to be a moneymaker, but I don't want to see them just losing money hand over fist.
Right. Well, it depends on what again, back to what are USPSA's products, and nationals is one of those. And I agree. We can't hemorrhage money, but I think at the same time we can't be afraid to spend a little bit to provide that nationals experience. It needs to be special.
Yeah.
That's, again, it's nationals, it's the rule set, it's the classification system. Those are our products. We need to focus on those. It's one of the things that we've talked about is, how many people that shoot USPSA membership that are not members. Well, I don't know of a good way to force that. If I put on my match director hat and someone from above, in the Charlie Brown voice says, blah, 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 everyone has to be a member to shoot, I'm going to say, okay, well, you just took, if we talk of the last match, you just took $60 out of my pocket because I had to tell those 5 guys, you can't shoot, you're not a member.
Correct.
Yeah, that's untenable.
And it would have been 7, except that 2 of my regulars are shooting multi-gun nationals, and they joined because they have to be a member to shoot multi-gun nationals in Forest Lake.
Yeah, that'd be a hard thing because I run an introduction to USPSA match pretty regularly, every month, and none of them are. And I understand that you can start, but I will have people that will show up who will not be a member and not be a member, but then eventually they might.
Right.
And I've always been proud of the fact that I've watched my little introduction match. I can go through our big match that we hold every month, and I can point on every single squad somebody who's come through that little introduction match.
Yep.
And so, yeah.
We have to figure out a way to make people want to be a member, and I don't have that answer.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Is because I don't right now. There's no compelling interest to be
if you
a
knew how to control
USPSA
people's
member.
wants, you would have all the answers.
If you want to be classified, and to a certain extent, I think the club culture has to sell the importance of classification. If your club culture talks about, hey, you could shoot this classifier match, it's shot all across the nation, and you're comparing yourself against the Max Michels and the Jake Dejourcazes, you can see, okay, today you're 20% of them. You do some work, and 6 months from now, maybe you're 50% of them. Man, you've made some progress. It's how you measure it, and that's one of the things I talk about. That carries on anything in life. If you measure it, you will get better at it. If you don't, then you have no way to track your progress.
Right. The hard thing that you get, I hear this a lot with the classification system, is these classifiers are shot out. And while that may or may not be true, the perception exists, and it's hard to overcome perception.
Sure.
Whether it's true or not, it's just a thing. And so it's always like, okay, well, why are we hanging on to these old classifiers if they're not really going to, if no matter how, it's like, what is it? Can you count? It's the silliest classifier in the world because you can't hundo it and you can't zero it. I mean, you really have to, so maybe we move these things out, but yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure there is some refinement, and they've brought in some new classifiers that are very, very different, that involve some movement, involve more stage-like, that are more of a true representation, and then I always have the minority that wants to say, well, your classification increases should only come from major match finish. Okay.
Well, that's like a small percentage of the people that actually shoot USPSA.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think I read somewhere that like 1,100 distinct competitors shoot nationals in an average year across multiple matches.
Oh wow, that's not that many.
No.
Wow.
Should the membership be concerned about bylaw changes to the president's position while we're still awaiting an appeal or waiting an election?
Well, any bylaw changes to the president's position wouldn't take effect until the next term. I don't.
So that would be 2024.
Well, okay, hold on. I can't absolutely say that. I could say that if I had an opportunity to vote on a bylaw change to the president, I would be reluctant to vote on anything that changed the rules today. Okay. Right, but we're not that far away, right? It's April 27th. We're 8 months or something like that.
Is the president's roles defined in the bylaws?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, so basically, then the only thing that all of the things that a president can and cannot do is defined by the bylaws, and it can't be really directed by any other outside element, including the managing director or stuff like that. So basically, this applies to even the board of directors. I mean, if it's spelled out in the bylaws as to what the board of directors and the president can do, does that mean that you then can go and talk to Rick Brotzel or whomever? I know Rick, just so I always talk about him, but you can go and say, I want to know what's going on here, and nobody can come back and say, hey, get back in your lane. Because if the bylaws say you have that power, is that how that works?
That's how it should work.
Okay. Message received. Tommy.
Let's see. Let me see if I have any more questions. Well, that was before your time, but the removal of people like Stager and Derek, and what's your take on how that was handled?
Well, I'll be honest, I've shared this with the board. Once I knew I was going to get elected, but before I officially took office, I reached out to many of these people and got their side of the story because all I knew what was on social media, right?
Yep.
And if I was ever in a position to vote on that, I needed to know their side of the story because I assume that if that vote ever comes up, I'll get to hear the board's side of the story.
Right.
And then I have to, it's like anything else in life. There's his version, the other person's version, and then truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
Right.
So then I have to look at both sides and determine what I feel is the truth, and then vote my conscience and vote because that's what the voters in Area 3 and the membership of the whole expects of me.
That's fair.
I could tell you to give you a general idea where I'm at on bans. I've been on the board of my home club for 20 years, and I think we've banned 5 people. Of those 5, 1 is in prison for the rest of his life. 3 of them.
Maybe you can start a club.
3 of them left the range with more holes in their body than they started with, and the last one just refused. The last one, when he was asked, the facility was closed for a youth event, and he decided to test his rifle in the ditch of the facility.
Oh, geez. Oh, wow.
So
That's
so
not
those
good.
those are the 5 people that have been banned from our range.
Yeah, I've had to do a bit of an about face on my feelings about those bans, and that's been really hard because I had to admit that I was wrong.
How so?
Because I talked about this on a couple episodes ago, where the feelings that I had was like, well, these guys are assholes. And that's what I said. I thought these guys are assholes. They deserve what's coming. And yet sometimes people can say harsh things and still be right. And
It's
just
not
because
how they say, but what they're saying.
Just because you don't like it doesn't mean that it's necessarily wrong. And I think I got more caught up in the emotion, and I let that be the guiding light rather than the actual facts of the case.
Yep.
And that bothered me.
Yep.
And so I hate apologizing. As a rule, I don't like to do it unless I know I did something wrong. And I just felt like I was wrong about that. And I told Tommy, I was like, you were right about these things. And like Derek, Patrick, Ben, yeah, I was wrong, and I'm sorry for that.
So think about for a second, what are USPSA's options? Right? So for us to discipline members, we really have, hey, don't do that. And then we have the nuclear option, right?
Right.
And it's really hard in my mind. Every person you exclude from the sport, you lessen the sport.
Thank you. Yeah.
And so it's super hard to. I just don't know. I know their side of it. I don't know the board side of it. I don't know what was done. I have to hope and believe that the board did everything they thought possible to alter behaviors before they went to the nuclear option.
Well, and that's how I feel about, and I'm not asking you to comment on it, but that's how I'm feeling about this situation with Yi-Min Lin. Was, from my perspective as being a match director, I've never been in the position of being an RM, but when I've been a CRO, and on my stages that I work, I get my ROs, and my job. I've always seen my job as a CRO, and to all cards on the table. I learned this from Yi-Min. But my job as a CRO is to train my ROs, and that's
Yes.
what your job is to do.
Yes.
And I've always believed the range master's job is to train and counsel his CROs.
Yes.
Everything kind of goes in that. And so,
Yes.
and I've had it happen where something has gone wrong, and I've had to go talk to the range master. I'm like, this is what's wrong. This is how I solved it. And I've had him come up and say, these are the things that I'm hearing. And we talk about it and we come up with a solution.
Yes.
And I can only speak to what has been said, but it does not feel that occurred in this situation. And if that is the case, that concerns me, because the job of the range master is to make his CROs better. And I've always believed that. And I believe that even in my professional career.
I agree. I agree.
So,
I view it comes back to leadership styles, I think.
Sure.
It's very I don't ever ask whether it's in my volunteer life with USPSA or the Ankeny Ikes or even at my job. I don't ask anyone else, any of my subordinates, to do something that I wouldn't do myself.
Right.
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 And so I think how you described how a match should work is we're in 100% agreement. I don't know what happened at that match. I know I have read through all the information that is provided. I cannot and will not comment on it.
Please don't.
Until the process needs to be sacred and not violated until it's gone its completion. And then I don't know that I would comment it without, at a minimum, Men's permission.
Right.
Yep.
That's fair.
Just a quick follow-up question
That's fair.
in Troy's response to the letter I gave him, he told me that I asked him in the past 5 years how many RO certifications have been revoked, and he told me that 2 have.
2. Yep.
Are you aware? Like, I don't need names or member numbers. Are you aware of the reasons why those certifications were revoked?
I've not been told, but I could guess. Right? We've got White Shirt Dude. Isn't that what they called him? The +2 guy.
The Hendricks.
Yeah. And I don't know the other one.
Okay.
Right. I assume Hendricks got his revoked. I mean, he should have.
Well, he should have, because he was also banned from the organization.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's that betrayal on so many levels.
Hurt.
I just don't understand the desire to cheat. I just you cheat yourself most of all.
Sure.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm weird. My harshest critic is the guy I see in the mirror every morning.
Yeah, well, that's the enemy of your entire life, is the guy that's in the mirror. And the one thing is, if you don't treat him like the enemy, you never get to conquer him. The one thing about
listen to that! Wow, dropping the truth bombs.
In
the dark, though. How come it got so dark in your room?
Well, it's because it's Utah and it's finally going down, and I don't want to get up to turn on a light. And now it looks.
Now he looks demonic.
You're the floating head in the room.
I'm the floating head. But I would say, like, this sport definitely attracts people who want to feel good about themselves. And the amount of bee shooters I've seen with the made up sponsor. Oh my gosh, thank you, sweetheart. With the sponsored jerseys of being non-sponsored, wear what you want, do what you want. But there's a certain amount of clout that goes along with classifiers and results, and most of it becomes bragging to people who have no care for the sport whatsoever.
Well, eventually, if you shoot the classifier long enough, you play the game long enough,
Correct,
you realize the classification doesn't really matter. It's how you shoot the match.
Correct.
I wish somebody would have told me that a long time ago. I would have not made a lot of mistakes I did.
There's no worse feeling than being the GM that has 3 or 4 A classes stacked above his name in the results. unless you've crossed the Mason-Dixon line of like 45 or 50 years old, Like it's probably.
Whoa!
I'm not saying
Shots
it's
fired.
a universal standard, Scott. I'm just saying. You know, there's a time and a place where people go, he's still got it, and they go like, he doesn't have it, and then there's the other guy who's never had it.
Yeah.
Now you're just making it personal, Tommy.
I'm not
Like,
trying
what
to
the
do.
heck?
I'm not trying to do anything.
I never had it.
I'm literally.
I'm pretty fortunate that I shoot with a real GM, and so I get to measure my scores. And it's always a percentage of Craig, and am I catching him without him having a malfunction or something?
Right.
Oh, I take the malfunction any day of the week. You see that. It's just like, hey,
Yeah.
bringing the right equipment's half the battle, everyone. So
Right.
some days you
Let
win
me.
that.
One of the thing in my professional life, one of the things whenever I go talk to my framers, I draw homes, but whenever I talk to my framers, plumbers, anything like that, I always ask the same question. It's like, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? And
Right.
what can we do better?
Right.
So let me ask you, what are we doing right?
What are we doing right? One, I think we have one of the most research, thought out, and concise rule sets for practical shooting in existence. I think the other product of USPSA is the RO training class, and I think we do a very good job with that. Troy has his detractors, but I think he's done a pretty good job of building a pretty good rule set and a pretty good support structure through the RMs for that. What could we do better? Communication. We need to get better on communicating and embrace the technology age. And to make sure that we, especially as board members, do not seem like we're in the ivory tower and inaccessible. What was the other one? So that was good, and that was better. What was the?
I always ask, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What can we do better?
What are we doing wrong?
The reason
I think the biggest thing that I think we're doing wrong, and this is probably partly a perception thing, is it feels like for some of our membership we have an adversarial relationship with our members, and that's wrong. That we should not have that perception at all.
How do we change that?
One member at a time, one board member at a time.
This is just me. I don't believe it's unhealthy to have an adversarial relationship with the board members, but it definitely is bad if the board members have an adversarial relationship with the membership. And this kind of came up with the kind of code of conduct discussion that was being brought up. I understand that, but just as when you decide to put your hat in the realm of representing people,
right?
Like you put yourself out there, and like the comment section on this video, or the comment section where it gets shared anywhere else, it's like, okay, that's the comment section, and we all deserve it, even if we don't deserve it, because we all put ourselves out there.
Sure.
I don't know that adversarial, when it may not be the right word.
Antagonistic, maybe well, that's fine. That's fine to have of elected people.
I actually want to see a board that doesn't come up with a unanimous decision every single time. I like to see if you don't always, and I know recently that's been the case. It's been really refreshing to see you and Frank pushing on things.
It's my contention that if you have a board that votes the same always, your board is not functioning correctly.
I would agree with that sentiment wholeheartedly.
Boards should be, a group of people that have similar goals, but they have different life experiences, different skills, and they don't necessarily have to agree. And for a board to function, everyone has to feel that they are empowered to vote their conscience. And the instant that a board is not that way, then it's diminished.
Do we have a board that feels empowered?
I think we're getting there.
Fair.
There's a.
I think we're getting there, and if I could say what is one goal that I have in doing all these podcasts is I hope that the membership, and I'm not just talking Area 3, I'm talking the state, United States wide membership, gets involved and sends us candidates, sends us good candidates, sends us people that want to be there for the right reasons. So in the last couple weeks, I've shot the Michigan sectional. I shot the Spring Classic in Minnesota. At no point did I introduce myself as Area 3 director. Not because I want to hide, but I want a chance to interact with the competitors as just another competitor so that they don't feel like they have to treat me different and they don't guard their opinions and their statements.
Sure.
Kevin introduced me to everyone, and a lot of people at Pine Island knew me, so it wasn't really a secret. But yes, I'm the Area 3 director, but when I step on the range, I'm just Scott. I'm just another guy. Put me to work, I'll run a pacer, I can run a timer. I'm not here for the power trip. I'm here because I want to make the sport better.
How do you convince the members to run then? Because it's a big commitment. Let me ask you. How many hours as an area director are you putting into this thing? And it's volunteer. It's certainly not a profit-making enterprise. This feels like my indoor matches.
Recently,
yeah,
2 hours a day, minimum. Answering emails, answering, and that doesn't count running Area 3. I was reading contracts and ordering targets and reviewing. I've got stages. Matt Hopkins has designed stages for me this year. He sent them to me a week ago. I haven't looked at them. My range masters looked at them. They're in my inbox waiting for me to look at it now with his comments. I would guess since in 58 days, I've read the bylaws 10 times, front to back, to make sure I understand what's going on. So we've got the last board meeting was, I think I have 10 hours in board meetings in 2 months.
Jeez. So it's a bit of devotion.
It is. But I've got, here's the thing, it's got out there that our financial results were less than stellar last year. We've got to do something about that. If for no other reason that, man, I've been doing this for almost 20 years. What am I going to do with the extra 2.5 days a week if I don't have USPSA matches to go to and run and do?
Right.
Yeah, shoot trap. Ugh.
Well, I would say so. If you don't have the strong man in the president that can kind of put forward a path forward and the board to guide him there, and that power is reduced more and more to the board, how do you fix that problem?
I don't know. Me as a board member can fix that problem. I think the organization needs to. This is you can parallel this with political in our country, right?
Yes.
Right.
About the same percentage of USPSA members vote for our president that vote for the national president. I'm going to give you the same answer that I give my clients when they ask me: be an informed voter. I don't care what you vote for. Be an informed voter. If you're an informed voter, then you will probably vote for a better candidate than if you just go by name recognition alone.
Last thing, it wouldn't be a PARAcast episode unless we brought up Jesus. One of the funniest things is just that we were talking about the bands and we were talking about that, and it was just like one of the interesting things about the Sadducees is that they always had to have one person represent the defendant no matter what. And so when they were brought before the trial, even any one member of that trial or council had to remove themselves and no matter what vote for the innocence of the person. There could never be a unanimous vote on something. And so I just little food for thought for everybody.
Well, yeah, but aren't you then again diminishing the true power of the board by forcing a single vote? I think we need to the entire board, each and every person needs to feel empowered in the ability to vote their vote.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a description of 70
the,
people, but I'm just saying it's
right. But when the bans came out, I have been told, and keep in mind, I wasn't a board member, so this is me speaking of knowledge from before I went on the board. That in the executive session where they talked about bans, it wasn't unanimous, but everyone was expected to come out of the executive session and vote unanimously to show a united front. And I would never do that. I would never do that.
Yeah. That would bother me immensely.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I mean, if you don't agree with something, you should stand up and say you don't agree with something.
Right. And I think the people that I've talked to that were there and did that didn't feel that they had the ability to do that. And
why is
that's
that,
not
Scott?
right. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, have we created a culture inside of the organization that it demands conformity? And if that's the case, are we limiting ourselves as an organization?
Well, do members of the board feel like they have to be USPSA first or representatives first?
I think you need to restate that. Have we created a culture on the board, not on the organization? There's a difference.
Okay.
Right. So do I think that might have been the case in the past? I think the record speaks for itself.
Sure.
Today, no. Speaking for me, Area 3 Director Scott Arnburg, I will always vote my conscience. Will that occasionally draw me some pressure and ire? Absolutely. But I have to be able to live with what I do every day. And I have to know that every interaction I have with a member, there's that potential to be held accountable.
Right. Look, I mean, I don't care if you vote for or against something, as long as you do it as long as you can at least define why you did it.
Correct.
I mean, that speaks to that goes back to this informed voter situation. I mean, people vote against the stuff I want all the time, but if they do it and they have a reason for it, I at least can respect that. And that's all you can really ever hope for.
Right.
And if you want an ultimate agreement, there's a good reason to run. If you want agreement with every vote that happens from your area director, feel free to run.
If you're the guy casting the vote.
Okay. It took me a second.
Sorry.
Yeah, it did. That was.
My Sadducees comment also sent us down the wrong tangent, which I didn't mean, but that's fine. Scott, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
This was fantastic. Thank you very much for coming on here and dealing with us for an hour and a half and giving us your honest takes. And maybe in a month or so, we will have you back.
That'd be great. I'm happy to come back.
Yeah, this is a time in USPSA that definitely should be chronicled open and honestly.
Right.
So,
and we all need to remember the match experience and what you come to the match is really done at the local level. And I would really hope that anyone that listens to this remembers that the local club and the local match is not necessarily HQ. And yes, there's a lot of drama right now and there's a lot of angst. But ultimately, the sport is still the same. Your friends are still there. Just like sometimes I tell my clients, turn off the news, go spend time with your friends and family. It'll all work out. You just need to give it some time.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And if you have an area director and we've got a presidential election come up, please be informed voters and send us people, send us good people. And when I say send us, I'm saying send the board good people.
Scott's like, send reinforcements. Send reinforcements.
Yeah.
Well, damn it. We got a voice of reason on this show.
I'll work hard to solve that.
Thank you very much. Thanks for downloading, listening, and subscribing. For Scott Arnburg and Robert Wyatt, I'm Tom Nelson, bidding you peace, love, and souls. We depart into the open waters of the Sea of Life on a little tugboat we like to call the PARAcast.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.